A warm welcome to this very special edition of the JADS Expert Talks, which will fully be devoted to, let's say, the past and the future, and of course the present of JADS. And we gave it the title, JADS Alive and Kicking. And the way we are going to handle this evening is that we have a few very well-known persons, figureheads, governors, and all sorts of persons who will join us in a roundtable discussion this afternoon, and we will then discuss the present and the past and the future of JADS. But before we enroll into the program, there are a few formalities that we would like to share with you. I'm sure that you are familiar with them. Can we move up the slide, please? Yes, thank you very much. So I'm sure that you are familiar with this, so please turn off your cameras at home, mute your mics. Well, this session is being recorded so that others can have a view after we have completed it. And there will be some moments for interaction. Please raise your hand. So we will be using Zoom as a backbone, and we will handle the questions through Zoom. And you can also have a lively discussion using the chat. And we will follow the chat. So, and if there is anything that is sufficiently interesting to bring to the table, that will be done. So let's have a short look at the program. As I already told you, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to spend the entire expert talk to discuss the well-behavior of JADS as an Academy of Data Science. And we will do that with two unit leaders. That is Ksenia Polonitsina and Erik Posma. And Willem Jan is excused for the simple reason that he suffers from corona. He is at home and not capable to join us. So there is no special reason for him not to be here. We will have a discussion with him in one of the later editions of the Expert Talks on the rostrum. So we also are very happy to have Ingrid Heinrichs with us. She will be joining us by Zoom later on, and the same holds for Geert-Jan Peters. I also would like to acknowledge the presence here of Fabian Korsten, Nadine Hol, and Laura Niemeyer. If everything goes okay, you will not see them in any way or hear them. But if something goes wrong from a technical perspective, they are the persons to help us out. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give it a start. And JADS is 5 years old. So at the point in time, and that's now exactly 5 years and 2 months ago, on the 1st of December 2016, JADS was formally opened. And that was really, let's say, the crown on the head of a number of activities. And of course, you can imagine that this did not just happen by a single week's work. It took more than 2 years to let's say, build JADS in a way JADS is now, or at least the JADS that we started some 5 years ago. And there is a number of images that have some historical meaning we would like to share with you. And I would like also to invite my table guests to step into the discussion as of this very moment, because we all have different reminiscences and recollection of what happened. What you see here is, let's say, the best room, as we call it in Dutch, of the city town hall of the city of Den Bosch, where the mayor at that point in time, Ton Rambouts, hosted the first formal meeting of all kinds of stakeholders that were invited to discuss the early ideas of JADS. And it is the year 2015, in the beginning of 2015. And this was a very important moment, because if these people would not have supported the original idea, then that would have not led to JADS as we have it now. And well, let me start and just look around the table. I know, Max, you were there because you are in the image.
The evidence is there.
Yeah, the evidence is there.
It.
Do you remember this meeting?
Oh, absolutely. As if it was yesterday. And it's kind of interesting to see all the faces there. So the executive board of Tilburg University, the executive board of Eindhoven University of Technology, the province, the municipality. I recall this as a very, very lively meeting with a lot of enthusiasm.
Yes. And what you also can see is that there was a lot of laughter. So, and that is typical for the development of JADS, especially in the early days. And that brings me to the next image. Here you see, ladies and gentlemen, a number of the founders looking good. So this is at the occasion of the formal sign-off of the early JADS agreement between the municipality of Den Bosch, the province of North Brabant, and the 2 universities in North Brabant. You also see one of the, let's say, early inhabitants of this monastery. That is Sister Letizia at the left. We will get back to her later, but this image shows 2 sides of the team that was working on the developments, the early development of JADS. And my then colleague, Frank Bayens of the University of Eindhoven, is holding a formal image of the 8 persons that undersigned the official agreement. And we always had a person with us that drew up cartoons of what happened within JADS, just to mirror what we were doing. And you see the very same group of 8 persons to the left. And it shows the pressure on the shoulders of the small people in the middle. And this is very nice. And this is very typical also for the way JADS was developing. So let's move on to the next slide. And that is also a slide that is typical of how JADS developed, because before we formally were launched, there was already an educational program that started earlier. And here you see some of the first students and also some of the early, let's say, persons supporting the educational programs. And very proudly in the middle, we have Ton Rombouts, because this was, let's say, the point in time where one of his dreams to have students at an academic level in Den Bosch became a reality. And so let me again look, Erik, is this?
I recognize students from the early days.
Yes.
That I taught, that I had in my class. And
yes.
I also supervised in master thesis projects.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to see them in this picture.
Yes, and what is also nice to see is that already at that point in time, the mix between locals and international persons was already there. For instance, the lady at the right, and I tend to recollect, Xenia, that you know her, isn't it?
Yeah, I know her quite well. So she's doing just started a PhD project with KPN on streaming data platforms.
Yeah, and she does this PhD lady with us.
Yeah, that's
so
a big
this is a proof point, ladies and gentlemen, of the power of JADS in terms of retention of students and people, I would tend to say. So it's great.
Well, and to the right, there's Willem-Jan van der Heuvel.
Yes.
And the first director, Arjan van der Born.
Yes, Arjan van der Born, and Angelique is one of the managing directors. So this is a very nice image. And that brings me to the next one. And that is, of course, the formal part. And here you see Queen Maxima of the Netherlands. And she really looks happy. And that was not at the end of the meeting. That was somewhere in the middle. And it's important to say that. And this is something that, now, we all remember. It was this light show. So there were light images projected on the front of JADS. You can see that in the image, and this was a great event. And Xenia, I remember from that meeting that you were one of the persons who really got the opportunity to tell the Queen about data science.
Yeah, She had a bit of an excursion around the campus and she talked to students, among others, and also to researchers. And I was one of the researchers in that regard. So we told about the research on Kickstarter platform and the impact of emotional expressions of the funds. So persons that are seeking for funding on this platform,
Yes.
and what kind of effect it has on the funding rate, on demands that they.
So you were lecturing at royal level at that point in time.
Yeah,
That
you
is
could say
great.
that. And
Yeah.
Eric was also helping in doing this research and executing. So he was not there physically
not
during
there,
the
but I did some
presentation, but he was
preparatory work.
mentally, he was fully supporting that.
Yeah.
And-
As always, yes. Max,
And I also have vivid memories of that day, or actually night. It was freezing cold while there was
Yeah.
this light show.
Yeah.
So it was because of the enthusiasm that everybody sort of warmed up. But outside it was extremely cold.
we operate at any temperature.
That's true.
Let's move on to the next slide. So this is one of the first hackathons that was organized within JADS in the so-called Manresa room. We don't have it anymore, but at that point in time, it was the common room of JADS. And it was a hackathon on wildlife. And does anyone of you know who organized it?
I know through Arjen, there was a contact with, I forgot who it was, but they had the data because
Yes.
the data is crucial.
Yeah.
And that was the input for the hackathon.
Yes.
And the idea was to detect illegal
Poachers.
poachers. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So from satellite images.
Yeah.
So if there is a, let's say, a flock or crowd of animals moving, can you detect remotely that there is a person in the neighborhood, and also in terms of the position of the person? And the answer is yes, it can be done. And the distance is 50 meters, which is a great result. It was established in 12 hours of tedious work by some, 50 students. And that is also a very nice example of the way and the culture we have been developing and working with within JADS. So let's move on to the next slide.
I start to notice a pattern. So we operate at any temperature within any time frame. So we keep adding.
Yes, that's true. And as I already alluded to, there was this dream of the mayor of Den Bosch to have academicians in the streets of Den Bosch. And he also would like to have, let's say, a first formal ceremony. And here you see Maurits Kaptein, and he gave his inaugural speech here in the chapel of Den Bosch at JADS. And we all look back at this as a very seminal event because, well, you know, a university is a part of the academy and the formal way of working. A cortege, for instance, that's something that we still have in this community. And we also have it here at JADS, so that's great. And we're also very proud of Maurits from the type of work that he has been doing. And of course, he's still with us because no one leaves here.
See, a third pattern.
Yes.
We'll get there.
Yes, and then we educate students. And this is a very nice picture because you see here the first set of students that reach the point of getting an MSc bull. And in the middle, there is the proud director of that point in time, Arjen van der Born, dressed up to the occasion. And that holds for the other persons as well. And Max, I recall that there was one very special lady in this first cohort, as we call it.
Yeah, because
do you remember?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'm allowed to mention her name. So the third one from the right is Paulina Koos. And I think she is, for me, she was sort of a role model as a student for JADS, in the sense that while we were starting up JADS, she came to me and said, I would like to join JADS. But I have a law degree. And I said, it's great that you have a law degree because you're interdisciplinary. I think you're a perfect fit. And she successfully finished her master, found, if I remember correctly, a job almost immediately. So I consider here, I mean, there are many success stories and many that I don't know, but she is absolutely one of them.
That's a great story, Max, because it shows that our way of approaching data science is truly interdisciplinary.
Correct. Yeah.
And that this lady with a law background because of her, of course, the skills and the intrinsic motivation, could step up to the level that we have, and we will get back to the level of our education later, which is really outstanding. So this is an example that we truly can advocate.
Yeah, perhaps
as
I
a best
should
practice.
add one important aspect.
Yes.
She worked really, really hard over the summer to make sure that she met all the quality
Yes, of
entrance
course.
levels.
Yes.
But it shows that if you have the mindset, you will get into JADS.
Yes, you can do it, but you have to do it yourselves.
And you have to work hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Let's move on to the next slide. Yes, well, Carnival and then BOS are, let's say, closely connected. And that also, of course, holds for JADS. So here you see the first, let's say, JADS crowd participating to the Den Bosch Carnival. And I tend to recollect that there was a Chinese student, who obviously didn't speak any Brabants or Dutch, but he enjoyed mingling with the locals during Carnival very much. And he was wearing at that point in time a JADS t-shirt, and the local thought that was his Carnival outfit, which is great, and we like to keep it like that. Shall we move on to the next? Yeah. Well, education and kids, a very important subject. Maybe Erik.
Yeah, I think this is very nice because academic research is normally a bit ivory tower research.
Yeah.
That's not the case for Yachts. So it's very open, and one of the nice traditions is that it's also open to the public, especially for children. So this is typically on Saturdays where Yachts opened up for children and interested people, where young kids could play with virtual reality, with computers, with robots, play games, etc. I think that's one of the nice things also for the city itself and for the people that live in the city to get to know science and get to know data science.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's very important. And I'm also very proud of the fact that JADS has been able to make this connection. I know, Max, that you have a lot of, let's say, experience in educating children. What is your opinion about the way we do this?
Well, so I remember this particular event. So Eric and I often give sort of a children lecture.
Yes, I know.
And often the question we ask, who is smarter, humans or machines?
Mhm.
And depending on the answer from children, we move back and forth.
Oh, yes.
And at the end, we don't really have an answer. I think I'm right, but Eric thinks he is right too.
As
But I
always.
remember this particular occasion that the first lecture that we gave, the room was packed, absolutely packed. So people were standing outside. And afterwards, Laura came to us and she said, would you mind doing it again? And the second time, there were not children in the audience, but there were a lot of adults who said,
the parents.
we need
Yeah.
to know more because our children are educating us. Please help us.
And not only
Yeah.
the parents, also grandparents
Grandparents,
that came
that's
to us afterwards and said,
Yeah.
now we finally understand what this
Yeah.
all is all
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. Did you
Yeah.
charge an entrance fee?
We should have.
Yes.
Yeah, but the
Okay.
business model wasn't complete yet.
Yes, that
Yeah.
is and still isn't. But that's another topic. All right, let's move on. So again, from a formal perspective, this is the inaugural lecture of Peter de Kok. So you can again see how we use this chapel premises to the max in terms of the colorful lighting, creating an atmosphere, which is great. And it is also nice to have Peter as part of the let's say educational and research staff, because he comes from the movie domain. He uses scripts and movie plays to investigate all kinds of elements that have to do with crime and safety. And there is this great combination, and there is also a strong connection to the interests of students in this subject.
Also very
Xenia.
interdisciplinary, I would
And
say.
oh, that's
Extremely,
yeah.
extremely
Yeah.
interdisciplinary.
Using narratology
Yeah.
and film theory.
Yeah.
Very
yeah.
much.
Yeah, that's great. Have you ever listened to one of his lectures?
Yeah, I
Xenia?
was there as well.
You
It
were
it
there
was
at
really
that
fun.
point in
So
time.
it was
Oh, that's
quite
great. Yeah.
immersive, I would say. So,
Yes, it was.
with,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
bits of movies there as well to illustrate his point. So it's
Correct.
quite
Yeah.
quite nice.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Give them time a little. Well, we are back to the kids, and not many of us know that we have an external facility as JADS. It's called the Efteling, and every year we go there, and we do that with the kids. You can see that they are wearing the jacks. Oh, go ahead, Senia. I can see that you are.
I was actually hoping that they would do that every year, but there was once that the summer school, the same summer school that you're also teaching in, that they went to the Efteling indeed, and then you see all those kids in there.
Yes.
When my daughter was grown up enough to join that summer school, so I was hoping that was a good Efteling,
All
but
right.
that was not the case.
So it was a one-off. That's
Yeah,
what. I'm sorry to be so enthusiastic. What do you specifically remember from this? What is the connection between the Efteling and JADS? Is it fun?
I think I wasn't
All right.
there specifically. So
Well, I do know. So
yeah,
on the
but
left, you see
probably
Willem,
not.
Jan, and
Yes.
Laura, and,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
and
at all these events with the children, it's sort of, I view Laura sort of as Mother Goose, and all the children are sort of behind her.
Okay.
And but then you would perhaps visualize this as quiet children, but usually they're really, really excited because they cannot wait what is going to happen in
Yeah.
the next hour.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. The next slide. And that is again, let's say, a proof point of the way we use this chapel premises. You see the liveliness again. This was a fair.
career perspective.
Yes,
Yeah.
career perspective. And so that is again on the connection between educational programs and how they serve the future of education. Could you say a few words about this, Xenia?
Sure. So the main reason to have this is that we do like to work with companies and external organizations, also non-profit organizations. So by now, depending on the electives, students can do half of the curriculum in real-life challenges with data sets with external companies. And of course, one of those courses is the master thesis. So students are always looking for internships or companies that they can work doing while working on their thesis. And this is one of the key events. So if companies want to lure the students in, this is the best way to go, basically. Because if you, of course, we also have the regular forms that they can fill in, and we screen them, and then we put them on the website. And if they're lucky, then students approach them and they select them. But if you really want to get in and get in contact with students, you go.
And this is something we do ever since the start of JADS, isn't it?
Quite so much, I think. So
Yeah.
I think we already had like at least 4 of those yearly events. So now they call Data Science Experience Days, if I'm not mistaken. But they're there for sure.
Yeah.
And
Well, we
tremendously
just
successful.
get the
so
information that we already did it 5 times.
we've been
So
5 times.
that's on the average once a year. So that's great. So let's move on. Yeah, this is also JADS to the max. So this was a film festival last summer. So in between lockdowns, you could call it. At that point in time, we were. It was formally allowed to have people at short distance. So we did that. And I think that you attended one of the evenings.
Yeah, one of the evenings
Erik?
was a display of this movie about DeepMind, the AlphaGo
Yeah.
development. Was very nice. Also nice audience and a discussion afterwards. I also attended the second one, which also was very nice, a bit more experimental movie. But that's actually an extension of this community service of Yachts, not only to children, but also to adults. And I think that's one of the traditions we had. Arjen Haring is one of the persons who did a lot in this, also discussions about controversial topics.
Yep.
So I think that's one of the nice things about Yachts, that we open up for the audience in a broader sense.
Yes, so the outreach part is important, but I think that we also can be proud of the fact that we combine, let's say, pleasure, leisure on the one hand side with content on the other hand.
Yeah.
Because what I recall from this movie series is that we choose, let's say, meaningful movies with respect to data science and artificial intelligence. I recall myself the movie Transcendence.
Yeah.
And then we have an expert in the Transcendence case that was Esther Keimolen, who is a philosopher by nature, and he then gave an introduction to the movie based on her deep, let's say, scientific insights in the ethics. So, and that's really a great formula. All right, I think that we are close to the end, but of course not without going to the ladies of data, featuring Xenia prominently. Why did you do this, Xenia?
I think one of the triggers was that I think I've been a joint program director for like 3 years, and then in 2020 I became also the program director of the master. And what always surprised me is that I was always expecting more ladies in the program because it's interdisciplinary, it's connecting multiple domains. There's a lot of social science facets in there. So it's not like a classical data study. So we should attract more female students, but that was not immediately the case. So I was just, that was, I think, one of the triggers that got me going. And to my great surprise, because especially the first events were not really specifically targeting students in this regard. So we want to do that this year and print them as well. But it created an immense response. So I think it was one of the most popular.
I was one of the 3 men.
in the first edition.
In the first edition, yes, and this was Ingrid was also there, so we could ask her later if she remembers this.
So it was the full chapel,
but I know that she had a great contribution there, so we will help her to remember it a little. But Xenia, looking at the enrollment figures. Have you been successful to attract more female students over time?
It is growing gradually, so it is working, and we also have Nadine here, so I'm quite happy to see also female data science students in there. But it is very gradually, it is increasing. But we're of course also reliant.
So it is rewarding. We should continue to do that.
I think so, and also in highlighting topics that are interesting in many different ways to both audiences, and where the gender issues could be controversial, such as natural language processing, for example, because especially all the recent NLP techniques, they rely on the text that is generated by humans, and if it's generated by humans, hence all the inherent biases that are there. So we kind of better deal with them as well.
Is female, so that's where they come in. Luckily,
stable. I'm just wondering.
All right, let's move on. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our small introduction. And if you would like to have another look at what we have just presented, we would like to refer you to our JADS Lustrum website, which is up and running already since December last year. And here again, you see the official opening, the mayor of Den Bosch and Queen Maxima. If you scroll down a little, then you can see the special JADS Lustrum logo designed by Laura Niemeyer. And so this website contains a lot of elements that might interest you. But what we, as a final element, would like to share with you is a very nice movie that was made of JADS. And let's simply start it, and then we can share with you our, let's say, feelings about this. So please go ahead.
What do I like most about our campus? Look around. It's an amazing space. I really like that this is a campus for us.
Here you learn and the technical data science skills, but also learn it to apply on real life cases. And together with all the facilities provided within this campus, you learn to become a great data scientist and future ready.
Technology and business, which is all what JADS is about. This is about data science and entrepreneurship, making that link between the business and technology.
I think data science is more than just the future. I think that for a company to have data science as part of its strategy, as part of its capabilities, is going to be the basis for competition.
We have a great community. It's a real ecosystem of our teachers, our master students, our PDN students, and professional education participants. But also we have a lot of data companies within the walls of the Marienburg.
The most unique aspect about JADS is their strong connection with businesses and MKBs in general. Also, their unique approach to support students to start businesses in a data-driven environment really convinced me to start at this institution.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the introduction. I hope that you have been part of some of these developments. And the remaining part of this expert talk, we would like to discuss a few elements from different perspectives with the guests. And it gives us great pleasure to have Ingrid Heinrichs in the call. And Ingrid is very special because she is a dean of the Technical University at Eindhoven. And that is, of course, already a very special position. But Ingrid also has been serving as one of the, let's say, persons giving content and also substance to the initiative. Ingrid, welcome.
Thank you, Emil.
And Ingrid, just to start a little bit, probably many people know you, but could you tell us a few words about yourself? So where do you come from? What did you study? How did you come to Eindhoven? And the answer is not by car. So
it actually is.
I know. What have you been studying? What is your subject content-wise, Ingrid?
I studied physics at the University of Antwerp, which is also the town where I lived for many years. Well, less years than I'm now living in Eindhoven, actually. But I brought all my youth was in Antwerp. And then after my studies in physics, I joined Philips Research. And to give Xenia a kind of perspective, we were then at that moment in time with 7 female scientists and something close to 2,000 male scientists. So that has changed a lot, but at that moment in time, we were a kind of exception. I don't hear you, Emil.
To have sound, Fabian? Yeah. Yes, it is there. Can you hear me, Ingrid? Yeah. Great that you bring this up. I started with Philips in 1982 at the Philips Research Laboratory. And to substantiate your remark, your statement, there was at that point in time in the canteen a single table for women. And there was one lady sitting at the table, Mrs. Speerts. And I forgot it, so I thank you for remembering me of this. So don't tell it to others, but that is great. Ingrid, I also tend to recall that you made a lot of travels for Philips Research to China.
That's true.
And those were great events because lighting is basically your team, I recall.
I started, my field of expertise is basically applied visual perception. So everything that has to do with what people see. And I started applying that to displays first, even at the times where the CRTs were still the main display type.
Yes.
Started with the involvement of the LCDs and then, but gradually indeed moved to lighting. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And then at some point in time, you decided to become a dean?
Well, I first started to become a professor, but that didn't take long because I think I was less than 1 year at Eindhoven University where some people thought it was a good idea that I would become dean.
Yes.
And I agreed on that. Yeah.
Yes, and that is quite some time ago already. So that's you seem to have found a way to survive as a woman in the male engineering world. So congratulations for that. And then there was this very interesting point in time where you first got to know about the JADS initiative. I know that we didn't call it JADS at that point in time, but please, Ingrid, enlighten us. What was your first? What is your first recollection of JADS?
Well, I think the first recollection, and you were saying, Emil, that it took 2 years between starting and having the official opening.
Yes.
And actually, I started the beginning of 2015. So that was close to when I started.
Yes.
And I remember that the two of us, as deans of the Technical University Eindhoven, went to a restaurant. I'm not sure. You selected the restaurant. I don't know anymore where it was. But we joined there with Corinne Prins and Lex Madam, two deans at that moment in time from Tilburg University. And well, we were actually trying to find out what could be the added value of merging the different disciplines that were available there. So talking about technical, so the data science, the mathematics part of it, the law part of it, the business part of it. And if we could merge all these different disciplines, wouldn't that give a unique educational program and research facilities? And well, I think we were all four enthusiastic about that. And that's, I think, where the basic start was, at least content-wise, of what we wanted to do.
Yes, and well, what we did not tell the audience yet is that you are also the chairwoman of the steering group of the two universities that, let's say, keeps an eye on JADS and the way JADS is going and developing. So that gives you two perspectives, I am inclined to say. So this first perspective as one of the original deans who got together and were inspired by the early ideas and also inspired themselves as a team on the one hand side. And now your position as a chairwoman of the steering board, which is quite an influential board, I would say. Where did we go from the beginning, Ingrid? So in terms of how successful have we become, to what extent do we, or have we been able to live up to the promises or expectations? What is your idea?
Well, I think, Emil, that we very well lived up to the expectations that we had at that moment. And to be honest, to a certain surprise, in the sense that if you realize, so you start with full passion and enthusiasm, and everyone is thinking about the content and all the people that could be involved, and students and possibilities for the city, and so everyone is enthusiastic. And then once in a while there is someone that says, yeah, but what do we have to do with facilities, or where are we going to get the money from, or where? And oh no, that we'll see how that solves. Let's first be reunited in the enthusiasm and in the ideas behind it. I should admit that once we saw all these practicalities that had to be solved, because you are kind of merging financial system, HR system, student systems of two completely different universities, I would be afraid that if you know all that up front, that you probably do not dare to start anymore. And luckily we didn't know that, and we just started. And then I think that there is great appreciation for all the people from these first hours and the beginning of setting everything up to circumvent all these practicalities. They were just going, and with great enthusiasm, and that's what brought us what we have today, I would say. And
yep.
Yeah,
Go ahead. But if you
cannot be overestimated. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
What had to be overcome on practicalities.
So I hear you say that indeed the early enthusiasm was, let's say, used for the better to overcome all the drawbacks that maybe we even didn't have on our radar screen when we started it. I think that is a fair statement. But do you have the feeling that this original spirit that we always tend to attribute to JADS as a very unique element, when you are here with us in the premises at Marienburg, is it still alive?
Well, unfortunately, I haven't been there for 2 years, and I think that's a bit the basic problem that everyone has. We have been sitting more at home than being at the premises.
Yeah.
And that's I think one of the difficulties, because in my view, JADS is really alive, but needs that facility and that community and that vibrance that's in there in that building. yeah, what I recall from the days that we had our steering board meetings within the JADS facilities, that on whatever day we were there, it was always vibrant. There were always activities, events, lots of students. And I think that's one of the real benefits of the whole initiative.
Yes, that is true. Well, we just, and I know that you were already in the meeting, and we just touched upon some of the events in the introduction, and one of the pictures, images that we showed the audience was on the Ladies of Data event. I was here, I listened. Sorry, I saw an Ingrid with a lot of passion about the subject, Ingrid, and I'm sure that you recall that. So from your personal perspective, being a woman, being let's say a firefighter for the role of women in science in general and engineering specifically, how are we doing at JADS from that perspective?
Yeah, I think very great. And the reason why I'm saying that is that it's a bit the same as what Xenia was saying. I'm always also attracted to multidisciplinary working with from different perspectives, looking to the same problem from different disciplines and collaborating with each other, team research, whatever buzzwords you want to use for that. But that's really, I think, appealing. At least it is for me, and I think it's in generally appealing for women to do that. And yeah, well, when I'm walking, I think Xenia is a very good role model for women in the JADS community, and broader, but surely also in the JADS community. And yeah, when I'm walking around there, I see a lot of female students also. So yeah, being raised up in a dominant male world, I already think that there are a lot of women walking around there, like Xenia. So yeah, I think it's a very good accomplishment.
Yeah, that's great. Also compliment for you, Xenia. So swallow it. Ingrid, you are also a dean at one of the biggest faculties in the university in Eindhoven. How do you combine, let's say, the efforts on the one hand side of your own, let's say, faculty, on the other hand, what is happening here in Den Bosch? And just to start with a very blunt question, did you ever send a student from Eindhoven to Den Bosch?
I think there are quite a bit of students from our bachelor program joining the JADS. But I don't want to take the credits of that I'm sending these students, Emil. My department is so big that I hardly know the students that we have in the different educational programs. So I think it's more to the merits of the presentation of the program and the program directors that take care that students find their way to JADS and Bosch. But it's actually, you're touching upon a point that's high on the agenda of the steering group at this moment.
I know.
Because we are convinced that the inflow of the students in JADS could increase. I think the facilities and the programs allow that. And surprisingly, there is not so much of a throughput, let's say, from the joint bachelor to the master in the Bosch. And I think one of the points of attention that we have is how can we stimulate students in the joint bachelor more to also select JADS and Bosch as the follow-up master program.
Yeah, what would be your advice there, Ingrid? Do you see any ways to handle this?
Yeah, well, I think one of the advices, but now I'm going to, because we will have in the next meeting a discussion with Xenia about that.
Yes, I know.
So I'm not going to say something.
We are using your input for the discussion, Ingrid.
But yeah, I think one of the things that would be very good to do is to see whether we can have at least one element or so from the bachelor program in the Bosch. Because I think one of the problems that we can face is that students, they start their bachelor, they are used to a certain campus and to a certain university, and most of the time stick to that campus and then select one of the master's programs there. So I hope that with bringing them in an earlier stage in contact with the vibrant atmosphere in JADS Den Bosch, that they select more often that program as their follow-up master program.
Yes, that's interesting, because many of us believe that JADS takes a very special position in terms of, let's say, our educational programs and the way we teach, but also in terms of the fact that we combine data science with entrepreneurship, which is at the heart even of JADS. Taking a little bit advantage again of your unique position, Ingrid, being a dean at the one hand side and being, let's say, a governor of JADS here. Do you see a difference in terms of academic culture between your own home university and us as JADS?
Yes, but then academic culture is, I think, a very broad term, Emil. I think the biggest difference that I see is that since it's more close, close is not probably the good word, but it's really a community.
Yes.
In JADS Den Bosch, where I think if you're walking around there, it's much harder to see who is a student, who is a doctoral student, who is a PhD, who is a PDN, who is a teacher. Well, at some age, of course, it becomes a bit more obvious, but in general, it all blends a bit away. And you really see that it's one community. While I think at our campus, of course, also teachers there try to be approachable for their students, but it's more like there's more distance there, I think. And that's part of because the campus is much bigger. And I think also the groups of students have their own facilities and their own activities that are more distinct from what teachers and management layers do.
Yes, thank you very much. We are coming a little bit at the end of our interview, but I'm looking at my table guests. Do we have questions for Ingrid?
Yeah, maybe a question. How do you see the future of JADS?
Bright. To be honest,
but I mean more concretely in terms of so if the program expands, can it become a self-sustaining also academic organization? Is that in your view possible?
Yeah, it depends a bit on how you define that. I think, to be honest, that well, in the beginning there was reluctance from both executive boards to really make it an independent unit. I think we discovered that to some extent you have to do that, because otherwise you create an environment that's not workable. So, and we moved into that direction. I'm not so sure whether there is added value to really be fully independent, because I think that the collaboration between Eindhoven and Tilburg really has added value. And to be honest, it's also one of the wishes of the province to kind of merge these two disciplines and bring them together and bring in that sense added value to the whole province, basically. And I believe in that vision as well. So I would say, yeah, you need sufficient freedom and sufficient independence to develop further and to become an independent institute, in the sense like being able to form your own program and to form your own educational programs. But I think keeping the connection with the two mother universities would be wise to do, because it, in my view, brings added value.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Ingrid. So thanks for being in our expert talk. I hope that you have the time to stay with us until the end. Thanks again, and let's concentrate a little bit on the discussion with, well, you as thought leaders, as I'm inclined to state. And maybe, Xenia, could we start with you? Could you also tell us a little bit about who is Xenia? Where do you come from? What did you study? What brought you to the Netherlands, except for a plane?
It's not the car, not the plane. So I see there another trend. Pattern recognition. So. Yeah, I was born in Moscow, so that probably also explains the name. Even though the name, the first name is actually Greek, so a lot of people think that I'm Greek. And then I have to explain no, that's not the case. And I kind of happened accidentally. So I got a relationship with my husband, and just my boyfriend basically. And I was just finished with my master's in Moscow, and he was doing his PhD in statistics before the data science. It was called statistics.
Yes, yeah, we know that. There's no dispute possible.
Yes, exactly. And then someone has to move, so I thought I'll just go a few years and I'll be back. And then some point in time you stay a bit longer, you get married, you get kids go to school, then you're stuck. That's a bit of my route, and I liked it here as well. So
excellent. That's great, and we are very lucky to have you here with JADS. And you take a very prominent role as a unit leader, as we call it. Comparable to the situation or the position that Erik has. We will get to that later. But you also have the responsibility, as we tend to call it, for the educational programs.
Sure.
And could you take us back, Xenia, to the first moment in time that you got to learn about the JADS initiative, and then develop the answer a little bit into the direction of the educational programs, and where we started and where we are now.
Okay, nice question.
Yes.
I think that probably another tendency and pattern that I can see that as I'm growing into things somehow. So that's also how it happened with me in JADS. So I've grown into JADS. It started with 2 days per week where I was asked. It was, I think, 2015. So I was not in the very first meetings, but probably 9 months or 12 months later on, relatively before the official launch of the program. Let's put it like that. So and then I had to design a course. Strategy and business models first, and I was teaching it, so that was 2 days per week. Then they, William, I think, and Carleen back at the time, they asked me to become the joint program director. Then they asked me to redesign the thesis project, so it kind of increased, and then the final move was to become the program director in 2020.
But you followed by will, I assume.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
No. I never say yes if I don't want to.
Yes,
Let's be.
Yes, sure.
Sure. No. That was true. So it's you kind of get consumed by by the community. You do not want to leave. That's basically the thing.
That's a very positive thing, I would say. But in terms of the early development, it's a little bit unlucky that Willem Jan is not here, because I tend to recall that he was the first one to be a responsibility.
He was directing the initial design.
For the initial design, so we had to deal with the NVRO and the CDRO issues. But you were involved there as well, isn't it? Could you say a few words on how did, let's say, the committee, for instance, that looked at what we were doing here from a educational perspective, reacted on the first designs that we confronted them with?
The interesting one is that I can also kind of compare the initial accreditation and with the re-accreditation. Yes, had that. So I can really reflect on it. One thing that I found particularly peculiar is that the very first accreditation was complaining that they did not saw enough how entrepreneurial competences were reflected in the program. So we had to compile a separate document where we described it in detail and substantiated and provided arguments, and then we're good to go, basically. And then preparing for the next reaccreditation, especially kind of working on this better relationship with the joint bachelor data science, what I was doing is I was highlighting the technical aspects pretty much. So I was renaming the courses, for example, because we already had a lot of technical subjects in there, but sometimes they were called with really nice fancy names from the single disciplinary perspective. So for example, innovation services, that was a course that unit of William Jan developed, which is a really heavy advanced data engineering course. But of course, from their discipline perspective, that's a very cool name, because it's innovation and services, and you have all this infrastructure that you can build for that, because that's the output that you're working towards. But from the kind of overall multidisciplinary perspective, people thought it was just an entrepreneurship course. Oh, it's a business course. No, it's a data engineering. It's a really heavy data engineering course, one of the most difficult in the program. So we better make sure that people see that whenever they just scan the curriculum based on the name. So that became advanced data architectures, basically.
Yeah.
So, and then I was kind of revamping that, making sure that we connect the disciplines even more closer, so that it's not a multidisciplinary program, it's an interdisciplinary program, so that the disciplines are connecting also within the courses and students kind of understand why you actually need them,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's not the goal, it's a means. So
Yeah.
having more interdisciplinary program, research, whatever, is not a goal in itself. So it
Yeah.
has to be meaningful, it has to serve a certain purpose. So
Yeah. So by the end of last year, there was a midterm accreditation or assessment of
the 6 year.
Yeah. And could you take us along a little? So what happened then, and how did the committee perceived the program? And maybe you even can say a little bit where we stand in comparison to others. But let's start with the
recognition.
yeah,
Okay.
with the reassessment.
That was a fun process, I can say. So it starts with writing a report, and then another interesting thing that happens is that the two universities get involved, and multiple stakeholders from the two universities get involved. And I think in terms of the number of eyes that were looking at our report, we were by far scoring the highest.
Too many, yes.
Yeah. So, and then of course everybody has an opinion, and sometimes opinions are contradicting. So you kind of have to resolve them in a nice, polite, politically correct way, which was also a fun exercise. And then the panel themselves, they were extremely enthusiastic, actually. So, of course, whenever you're working on straightening up the vision and philosophy of the program, you hope to get it, but they were like really, really positive. And I think the most,
yes,
I can even say that like the most critical point was that they were debating on to what extent the minors were chosen very strategically and politically because they felt that there are many more things that you were doing, that it's more to life than agri-food and environment safety in this world, and you do more than that. So why only those two? That was the first main critical point. And the second one is that they thought that the level on the master thesis was extremely high. They were, a lot of them even led to scientific publications and in journals and conference proceedings. So they loved it, but they had remarks on transparency. So they also liked how we made the individual assessment. So two assessors are grading the thesis, so they, loved it. But they felt that the link from two individual assessments to overall assessment was not transparent. So I thought, if this is the level of comment that my program is getting, I'm happy.
Yeah,
so, I'm completely
and
happy.
in terms of rating ourselves, I don't know if you are, if there is a possibility for you to compare us or the educational program that we have to that of others. And we know that there is something going on in Amsterdam and also in other places in the Netherlands. What is our position?
We cannot really compare with Amsterdam because they are more recent, so there's just no student relations there yet. And of course, students are the clients of of a master program, so we have definitely take that into account. But to the existing programs also from Tilburg, from Maastricht, from Utrecht, we compare actually quite favorably, I would say. So the very recent, so the study guide, Studiegids has been just released, and there we look actually quite positively. So
excellent. Congratulations.
So,
I do know how much effort you put into this.
Very, very positive.
And you use the word fun, which always has two meanings.
We have to be able to laugh about it. Let's be honest.
I also know, Xenia, that you are a unit leader, and well, also a little bit given time. Let's postpone that a little. I know that we are going to devote an entire expert talk to your unit. So all the persons who tuned in today to listen to the content of your unit.
There's a lot of research there. Really fun,
they have to wait for another month, and then
in April.
We have. Yes, great. All right, then maybe we can move at this point in time to Erik.
Yeah,
Erik, I think that you also have been with us from the beginning, but there was an Erik live before JADS.
Really?
Yeah, I know you from Maastricht already. So, but maybe could you take us along a little? So, where do you come from?
Yeah, so my academic career maybe. So I
Yes.
studied in Nijmegen, or I was born in Nijmegen. So I started studying theoretical physics because I was interested in perception, and I confused that with physics. But after half a year, I moved to what used to be psychology, but it was actually a preparation for cognitive science and AI. So I did 8 years over my study that was possible in these days. And I followed all kinds of courses that had to do with the biology or with computer science or with Lisp or all these computer things. So I have a kind of interdisciplinary background. And then after that, I moved for my thesis to Leiden and then to Maastricht, where I did my PhD. And in 2009 or 2008, I moved to Tilburg.
Yes.
And there we entered into a group which was not very technical. And the idea was there to set up a technical group, which was very hard. And actually, to be honest, I was about to seek another position at another university. But around that time in Tilburg, we had a rector, I forgot his name, but he launched all kinds of initiatives around data science. And that was the thing. And then my colleague, Max Lauwers, here at the table, he invited me to participate in the Yachts initiative. And that changed things for me. So then I entered into Yachts, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and that was also the reason to keep you in Tilburg. That's why we launched JADS.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
So
We worked really, really hard.
Yeah. So it's happy to see that we are successful. Erik, you have been one of the figureheads of the JADS development. Also, of course, from the educational perspective. Well, Xenia alluded to that, but maybe we could shift a little bit to the research perspective. Could you tell us a few things about what have you been doing? What competences did you develop as part of the JADS endeavor?
I think, first of all, my background is in artificial intelligence. Actually, I'm a bit more interested in fundamental research. And it sounds a bit odd because this is all about applied research. Not all, but there's more emphasis on that.
Yeah.
But throughout my career, I was always open for working on practical projects because they can be very inspiring for your fundamental research. And one of the things that happened at Yachts is what we all discussed already, is this atmosphere here.
Yes.
And many projects that come in from all kinds of sides and fun projects, Project Phil, or that are experimental.
But how would you describe it from your perspective? So you speak about this atmosphere, we all not, because we have some perception of what is the JADS atmosphere, but what is the meaning for you?
The meaning for me is that anything is possible.
As long as it is decent.
Yes, of course. No, but I think there's no restrictions. And I think the open atmosphere. So for those of you who are not familiar with universities are a bit like government subsidized organization, very stiff and very slow and very formal. Yachts was the total opposite of all that. And that also affects the attitude towards research and research projects. And I think that's where that made me enthusiastic, but many people involved in Yachts became enthusiastic about that. Everybody was involved in research, sometimes very practical problems that companies had, sometimes with very fundamental things. But that's what I like about Yachts. It's a mixture of all these things, these different disciplines, and this sense of freedom, and the sky is the limit.
I do recall that was one of the original, let's say, design principles. We spoke about JADS as a startup university at some point in time. And so all the let's say the good things that you mentioned, they, let's say, substantiate that vision. But would you still say that we are doing well in all these dimensions?
No, there are two problems now. One is the COVID situation, of course. That does not help because being in the building and talking to people.
Ingrid already alluded to that largely, yes.
The other inevitable thing is that an organization that becomes in his or her puberty or becomes an adult organization has to adhere to certain structure. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you overshoot the management in that respect, that would be a danger.
Are we doing that?
I'm afraid that we sometimes move in that direction.
Could you give us an example?
Well, for instance, we have 3 research units which are managed as if they are complete departments. But I think we can informally discuss things. We can do that in a much more efficient way. So I think we could preserve some of this informal structure while still making sure that all the things that you have to organize are well organized.
Yeah, the structure is often used to become recognizable for the external
Yeah.
parties on the one hand side and to govern processes internally.
Yeah.
Well, the latter is only needed if you are very big. Well, we are not so very big, so for that matter, we could do away with it. And then what that remains is the external positioning.
Yeah.
Is that so important in your opinion that we then should adhere to this structure?
No, I think what we could do is just, and that's my general philosophy with these things. You have persons or small groups, like little flowers, and if they flourish, you give them more water.
Yeah.
And that is an approach that works very well. I also try to push that in the unit. If I see people that want to grow, I try to encourage them and to help them. I think that's a general philosophy that works very well for all kinds of research organizations.
Yeah, that's true. That's a cellular model, as we often refer, or Anglo-American. Well, we sometimes practice it indeed. But given the fact that we, let's say, are a child of two universities, so we have two mothers, two fathers, or whatever type of construction is conceivable, is there enough space in between these two universities to work like?
Well, that's why I call it puberty. It's difficult for them to get adjusted to the behavior of yachts, but I think they have to accept that we need some independence. I fully agree with Ingrid that it's very useful and fruitful to keep on this collaboration with universities.
Yeah.
Because there are many projects where both Tilburg and Eindhoven benefit from. But I think you should accept the fact that Yachts has some independence and that you should preserve this independence to make it a successful story.
Yeah, that's also the strong point in a good family in the keeping up the relation with their teenagers. So they still would like to be part of the family.
Yes.
If it comes to money and a roof over the head whenever.
Well, teenagers are supposed to rebel, so perhaps that should be a theme.
Yeah, and the good parents give them the freedom to live through that part of their lives. Well, that's a good metaphor. Maybe for the type of research that you are doing, so you are one of the, let's say, professors in the Netherlands on artificial intelligence. This artificial intelligence thing is becoming big. It attracts a lot of attention. A lot of money is going to be thrown at it. Do we as JADS benefit from those developments sufficiently?
Yes, I think one of the great things, and that was in the early days, there were these contacts with KPN, where also Arjen and others were heavily involved in setting up collaboration, which ultimately turned into one of the ICAI labs. And I think we were one of the first ICAI labs in the region. So
I know.
That was great. That's now very successful. We have PhD students working on it. Many supervisors from within Yachts and from Eindhoven and Tilburg are involved. And we also have, through the efforts of the impact team, most notably Renato Balzone, we have a Caribbean project, kind of extension. And also the other members of the impact team are involved in other. So we really expanding on this initiative of the ICAI labs and the extensions of them. So I see a bright future there, and I'm happy to see that many of the people working at Yachts, the researchers, are also involved in these initiatives.
Yes, great. Fabian, I'm looking at you. Do we have a connection with Geert-Jan already? He's in the call? Okay, Geert-Jan, welcome.
Good evening, everybody.
It sounds like the votes from Greece. The Eurovision Song Festival. So welcome, Geert-Jan. We are really happy to have you in this call, and we would like to spend some 10 minutes of our time to discuss with you the course of affairs in professional education, which is one of the mainstream activities JADS has developed to have impact in general. But maybe before we dive into the details there, also in your case, I know that you have a strong background in, let's say, developing professional education from, for instance, the TIAS perspective. And could you tell the audience a little who you are, what is your background, professionally speaking, and maybe also a few words on your first encounter of JADS?
Oh yeah, that was a very nice one. Yeah, so my name is Geert-Jan Peuters. I'm the Director of Professional Education at JADS. I had the opportunity to join JADS at the very beginning in 2016. Before joining JADS, I was working for about 10 years at TIAS. So that's where I gained lots of experience in developing executive education programs, building custom programs, leadership programs for organizations. And before that, I worked for different companies like L'Oréal and Randstad. So, and when I was thinking tonight, when did I first hear about JADS? And Emil, I think it was you that inspired me, because I think this was in the aula at Tilburg University at one of the DS events. This must have been in 2015, in which you were introducing the idea of JADS. And I happened to sit, and this is, well, coincidence, I guess, I happened to sit next to Arjan van der Born. So when I heard about this, you know, big data, the new oil of the 21st century, that really inspired me. And so I talked to Arjan and said, wow, this is great. And he said, yeah, you know, I'm very much involved. And basically, we're looking for somebody who can set up the professional education department. You know, and well, just right after that, I talked to him and to Frederik Knut, one of the first people to build and to develop JADS in the very beginning. And then it didn't take very long before I took the decision to join JADS. So that's a little bit my history.
It's a nice story. I didn't know it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I would have asked you not to tell it. But that's a different thing, Jan. Well, we work closely together in the professional education, and it's really a great activity. So from your personal perspective, could you share a few, let's say, experiences with us and the audience? So what is it actually, professional education? What type of programs do you enroll, and why is it so much different from, let's say, the classical, let's say, academic mainstream education that we were discussing with Xenia, for instance?
Yeah. Well, I think the most important difference is that we are talking that we don't have students, but we have participants or customers. We are dealing with professionals, people that are working presently, currently, and people working for organizations or entrepreneurs that really see an opportunity in becoming a data scientist. And so it is our task, maybe, if you want to put it that way, to help people to develop themselves in becoming a data scientist. And being a data scientist, they are capable of helping or developing an organization and to become more data mature and to get the most out of data. So over the last 5 years, we developed a portfolio of programs. The first one started beginning of 2017, our flagship program, the Data Expert Program, and all of you, Eric, Max, and Xenia, they've all been starring in this program, and you all contributed to it. But that's the first program that we started with, and since then we developed this portfolio of programs. And when we first started with more technical programs, these days we are also offering programs for more business managers. So basically, not so much separate, but we are dealing with different target groups, and we are offering these target groups different programs.
Yep. Jan, and in terms of, let's say, the type of students and their behavior, so it's not only, let's say, a difference in age, I would say, or maturity or whatsoever, but in terms of the way we have to deal with them in the classroom. What is the biggest difference between the two groups?
I think, well, looking at the open, especially the open programs, these people have chosen themselves to invest in themselves. So they're very highly motivated to invest in time, in money, and to take a next step in their careers. So I think that is one of the most striking differences when we look at this group. But yet at the same time, we have a high diversity of participants. So let me give you the example of, for instance, we do have a partnership with KPMG, and they have the so-called KPMG Postmaster Data Science program. In May, they will already start their 5th cohort. So they are truly a partner of JADS, have become truly a partner of JADS. And these are young people that have just graduated their master's studies. And it's for KPMG, it's a tool to attract young people to come and work for them. And in doing so, they offer this postmaster data science program. So we've got different groups, younger people, but the focus is the average age, I would say, is between 35, 40, 42, with regretfully a high percentage of male.
But so it's part of their lifelong learning journey, you could say, and there's a strong intrinsic motivation to, let's say, increase their level of knowledge and maybe make a career shift. Could you give us a few figures of merit? So in terms of how many different programs do we have? How large is the set of alumni?
Well, I think what we're all most proud of is the number of alumni, and not only just alumni, but also the number of alumni that are really ambassador for JADS. And so today, as a matter of fact, tomorrow we will have a next graduation of one of our programs. And after tomorrow afternoon, we'll have over 500 alumni, and very committed alumni.
That's impressive.
That's one of our programs.
On average, a year.
So that is, the number of programs, well, it's just the way you look at it, but basically you can say that we offer about 6 different open registration programs. And then next to that, we also offer custom programs, customized programs for organizations like KPMG, but I think another good example is De Lage Landen or DLL in Eindhoven, or Daftrix.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm looking a little bit ahead to wind up. What is the future of professional education within JADS?
Many more very satisfied alumni that will be ambassador for JADS. And I think what I wish JADS to become, or what I would advise people to do, is to plug into what we offer at JADS. And I think there are 3 E's here. There's the E of experience. We've got a vast experience at JADS, not only from our academics or the academic community, but also all the professionals and companies and students that are walking around. Secondly, the expertise. Once again, like you are all sitting at this table, our research teams, all the expertise that is present at both universities. And thirdly, and I think that's even most important, it's our enthusiasm. The enthusiasm that all connects us. We're all fond of working with data. We believe in data. We believe that it can really make a difference and create a huge impact. So
that's a great view, Geert-Jan. So thank you for being with us. And have a nice day tomorrow. great
Yes.
graduation, and
Yeah, looking forward.
congratulations with the 500 alumni in your field. So excellent, excellent.
Thank you. Have a nice evening there. Bye-bye now.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the last part of our expert talks, and we would like to engage in a conversation with Max. Well, we have introduced you, but also for, I think, the one or two people in the world that might not know you, Max. Take us along a little in your career path.
Oh dear, where shall I start? Well, I did my PhD in linguistics at the University of Edinburgh after doing 2 masters in the Netherlands. And following my PhD, I got restless again. I'd like to shift field. I often describe it as suffering from academic deficits and hyperactivity disorder. So as soon as I think I understand the discipline, it's time to move away.
Yeah.
So after my PhD in psycholinguistics and computational linguistics in Edinburgh, I moved to the United States, where I had spent a year earlier as a postdoc in psychology at the University of Memphis. And I was planning to stay there for 2 years, but that became 13 years. I became a professor in...
We've heard that before, Xavier. Yes.
I became a professor in psychology and intelligent systems there, became director of the Institute for Intelligent Systems, a research institute. And then because of family reasons, we decided, my wife is Dutch as well, we decided to move back to the Netherlands or back to Europe. And where will you end? Well, either Tilburg University or the place where Eric Posma is. Well, and this happened to be... That
could be combined, exactly. So that is great.
Yeah. No, so but on a serious note, among other universities, I selected Tilburg because I felt that there was something possible there. I thought if you want to grow something, this might be the restless university that has entrepreneurship in its nature. And I think that's what we found in JADS as well.
Yes, that is a natural bridge indeed to JADS, and also, let's say, your first, let's say, affairs with JADS. And I do recollect that you were really one of the early persons being involved in this endeavor. And also for you, the question, what actually was the first time when you learned about JADS?
I don't know what the first time was, but I do remember many, many nights between researchers, well, at either Tilburg or in Eindhoven,
yes,
with researchers from Eindhoven and Tilburg, where it was sort of finding each other. I remember that there was a lot of enthusiasm in those meetings. And some of my colleagues have reminded me of the fact that sometimes there was a lot of tension. But the irony was that throughout the evening, despite the fact that there were differences in opinion, at the end of the evening, people said, okay, we've become a little bit wiser. So there was a sort of we mentioned it a lot of times tonight, but there was some kind of enthusiasm. And one of the things that I still find spectacular in JADS, particularly when I talk to companies and I talk to the corporate world on a regular basis, they sometimes think universities are slow. Universities are not slow. Within a year, we set up a graduate school in data science within a year with 2 universities that are complementary. And in the meantime, in our enthusiasm, we said, let's add a bachelor program to that. We did that within a year.
I know.
I don't think there are a lot of people that can say that.
Yeah, that's a compliment for ourselves and also for all of you involved in this. And where do we stand at present? So I know you teach with JADS. You are one of the persons that are fully involved with what we are doing. Of course, you also have an activity at MindLabs in Tilburg that is comparable. Also, the formula in a way, how we set it up is comparable. But getting back to JADS, so we are here for 5 years. We come to the conclusion that we are alive and kicking. At least we gave our best this evening, and I think that we succeeded in that promise. What is your advice as a thought leader on the subject, being part of the bigger artificial intelligence developments worldwide and also in the Netherlands? What should we be heading for?
Oh dear.
In the 5 years to come?
Well, I think first of all, Eric referred to that earlier. I've never believed in a difference between fundamental research and applied research. I do not believe in that difference. The way you approach it, however, could be fundamental or applied, but applied research ought to be fundamental to some extent, otherwise you cannot start it. And fundamental research ought to be applied. When it's going to be applied is uncertain.
Otherwise
but
you cannot finish it.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
And so at some
Good
point it will be applied. So I think JADS should stay aware of that. If it doesn't, it will either undermine its academic values or it will undermine its applied setting. So that's
and how we should do that?
I guess by doing what we are doing, rebel, coming up with research projects, working with the corporate world that push us, and every time we fall back into theories, there is the outside world who would say, listen guys, you're moving to your ivory tower and it's time to climb down. And the moments that our academic colleagues say, you are too much on the ground, it's time to go up the stairs to our ivory towers again.
Yeah.
So that's one. The other one is very close to my heart because in Mind Labs, we see a similar development. I understand that for the outside world, it's important to identify themes. I am deeply concerned about the fact that themes might stifle progress because before you know it, you're excluding students, researchers, companies, and particularly in a field like data science and artificial intelligence, the time is over that you can say this fits this particular theme. So the moment people say, well, we're going to concentrate on these themes because it's good for the outside world, I'm thinking, well, apparently your PR program becomes more important than your contents program because contents-wise, this might undermine your very nature of what you're planning to do.
If I may transpose it a little, so I know of organizations in the world where the people just do the things they like and do it in a way that's really good, and that the organizations surrounding that organization know that this is the way of working, and they don't give a damn about what the students basically do during their masters, but they care about, let's say, the qualities that have been developed, and they know that a student from such an organization is a student that they want for employment or whatever reason. Do you have the opinion that we should go for a position like that as JADS? And do we have the space?
Well, that's difficult for me to say, but first of all, the educational program is well structured. So it's not the case that anything goes. Students are educated towards becoming a data scientist. But I would not like to see the day that there's a student who would say, well, I'd like to combine, I don't know, anthropology and data science, and that somebody says, well, that doesn't quite fit this theme. I think that would undermine the very principle of JADS. And perhaps, as Eric pointed out, we are sort of in puberty, so perhaps we need to find out the direction we're going to take, as long as we don't grow up too much, because that might stifle progress.
Yeah, you mentioned it. But maybe as a last, because it's already close to 9 o'clock, unfortunately, but we have to close down. What would you be really hoping for JADS to happen in the year to come?
What I would hope for so I worked 13 years in the United States, and when I came here, people were talking about West Brabant, Mid Brabant, East Brabant, and I didn't get it, and I still don't get it. So for the outside world, there's Amsterdam and there's the periphery of Amsterdam, and we happen to be in the periphery of Amsterdam. So when you're looking at these many initiatives, let's take the province, as small as it is, then I think you should take advantage of the fact that we're very complementary. So we have JADS, a data science center of excellence. We have EASY, we have Brainport as artificial centers focusing on high tech. We have Mind Labs focusing on human and artificial minds. What I would hope is that none of these centers will become islands, and that we try to be complementary and work together. And the evidence is, JADS, that it could happen working together.
Yeah, and there is also a call to action, because what you are asking for, we can deal with ourselves, because we are the persons to make it come true. Because other persons won't be doing it for us. So we should take that space and explore it. So great. Well, thank you for being here over the last 1.5 hours. I think that we had a great recollection of what JADS is, and that we are proud of what we have jointly built up so far and that we are also eager to continue it a little as long as we become part of it and get the space to maneuver. So, ladies and gentlemen at home, thank you for being with us. I hope that you enjoyed the conversations. Have a pleasant evening and see you back in 4 weeks from now, where we are going to discuss the details with Willem-Jan van den Heuvel about his unit, and that will bring, I'm almost sure, a new angle to the entire discussion on the position of JADS. Thank you very much, and have a nice evening.
Thank you.